shooting down in the woods. He wouldn't leave it even if he could. 'Cause life is good, yeah!
Hickok45, your internet shooting companion, coming to you from Tennessee. Yes, you know where Tennessee is. You've seen it before. You've seen it on the map. Some of you might even live here. Anyway, I'm going to yak at you a little bit again this week. Going to probably post this a little bit early and give you a chance to give me a chance to post it and a chance for you to listen to it. How's that? Is that making sense? Not really, does it? Anyway, this week got a few things I might talk about. A couple of stories maybe about some crazy situations I was in with my Model 29. Talk about maybe gunsmithing, knowing your limitations. Let's see, what else might I talk about? We'll have a gun action, of course, of the week. Guns that I recommend, perhaps. Got a little mention of that I want to make. I want to take you back into history, into the early 70s, and talk just a little bit about what it was like then in making gun choices, what was on the shelf, that sort of thing. A little bit of gun safety, perhaps, and then we'll just see what else we end up talking about. You never know, do you? Once I start yakking, there's no telling what I might talk about. But anyway, hope you enjoy it, and some of it, at least some of it, makes a little bit of sense to you. You know, you never know, it might. You know, I was out here boxing up a gun or two, and it just kind of occurred to me, thinking back through the last few months, or even a year, all the guns, firearms that I've demonstrated or tested, quote unquote. Many I've already owned, some I've traded into, and maybe even out of a few of those. Then the T&E guns that have come through, which is probably, I don't know, 8 or 10. Some of which I've kept, bought, others I've sent back. And as I was boxing these up, I just couldn't help but think, really how fortunate I am, as of course you guys point out all the time, have my own range and everything, which I've had since very early 80s. It really is nice, and to be able to have perspective on a lot of firearms. I pick up a lot of gun magazines, like I'm sure you guys do, when I'm at the grocery or just wherever. Don't subscribe to as many anymore. I don't know why. It seemed like the ones that I subscribed to, I don't know, some of them changed hands over the years. Used to subscribe to a lot of them, and the quality of a couple of them kind of went down, and I would not renew my subscription. But then you know how that goes. For about 4 years, you get notices that you owe them money, as if you really do, but you don't. You just aren't renewing. And so I don't know. I just gotten to where I pick them up on the newsstand again if I see one I like. A lot of redundancy, you know, in those things. Same articles and over in some cases. I don't know though. You know, I have to say, I think one reason I've started picking them up again in recent years is they really might be getting better than they used to be. I don't know. American Handgunner I really like, and just some good magazines out there now. I think they're I don't know, maybe they're a little more, what would you say? They're more receptive to maybe the demands or requests of the buyers or something. I don't know. You just seem to get better articles now. Not sure what it is, but I usually find some things I like, and as usual, the things I don't care about. But anyway, I digress. Just again, thinking about how fortunate I am, because speaking of the magazines, I used to read those and think about how cool that was. Some of those folks experimenting with so many different guns and all that sort of thing, and how brilliant those fellows were that were shooting all those different guns and that kind of thing. Not that I've ever had a lack of firearms to play with and experiment with, but it is really neat. When I pick up a magazine, I see articles on this gun, that gun, various guns, and a lot of them on the cover, you know, as being featured. And I've shot them. I've had them for a month or 2 months, or I own them, and I know as I read the article what the gun is really like and how my opinion might vary from theirs, or how it might be consistent with the writer's opinions and that sort of thing. And of course, it's always a little strange, in some ways when you read those and you read about the groups that are shot with this kind of ammo and various things. And sometimes they don't really specify how they shot the groups, if they bench rested, how they bench rested, and all that sort of thing, how good a shot they are. It's all a little bit subjective there, isn't it? How many times they did it in order to get that particular group, I don't know. Anyway, I think video has a lot to offer in that regard, particularly where we don't edit videos very much at all. You kind of see what you get what you see, and we definitely don't try to hide anything. We just now again, I'm not in the business of bashing gun companies. If I were to get a gun in that just would not work, I'd probably send it back. I wouldn't do a video. I would just, hey, you got a problem with this gun? If I do a video showing how it doesn't work, that's skewing the truth about the gun. It might be 1 out of 1,000 that doesn't work. So that wouldn't prove anything either. So I would just send it back and say, hey, get this thing working, and I'll try it again maybe. But that sort of thing. If I were to get in 2 or 3 guns from a company that just all of them were junk, well, I'd probably start letting you know about it. But you wouldn't want you to go out and buy something that really does prove to be unreliable or junk. But by the same token, I think that the video does have a lot to offer, because the particular way we do it, you kind of see it for what it really is. But anyway, it's really neat to be able to play with all these different guns and experiment and bring them to you and enjoy shooting them, at the same time, sending the range officer back. That's a nice gun from Springfield. Tempted, I've got a lot of 1911s. I've got one that's souped up, and I have a lot of the bare bones ones, and contemplated for a little bit on that one, but I just don't see myself getting back into competition like that. If I did, that might be a wise choice for me. But if someone said you got to go out and buy a 1911 this month, I'd probably be more inclined to try to hunt down a bargain on a GI model somewhere. That's just me. I love the basic gun, and anyway, it's fun to play with these guns and shoot them. So hope you guys are enjoying that too. Hope by now you've seen my massive holster video. Is that a table full of holsters or what? I've been telling you I would do a holster video, and I'm not going to repeat everything from the video. You can relax. And the more we talked about it, I've had that kind of on my short list. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I need to do one big overview, kind of, and maybe give a little information to a lot of people. It might be beneficial until I get into more specifics of various kinds of holster, concealed carry, and that sort of thing. And so I told John, what we do, let's just grab everything I've got and take it out on the table. And that's kind of what we did. But it's funny, there were several holsters that I realized I did not have. One of my favorite holsters, I'm not sure where that rascal is. It's probably hanging in here in the reloading shed somewhere. As you can imagine, with what you saw on the table, would be easy to overlook one somewhere. I have a Pancake holster, kind of like the similar to the J.W. O'Rourke holsters. This particular one is made by Galco. I picked up somewhere. It's for 1911. It's full-size 1911. The standard Pancake holster, slaps tightly against your belt, but it's an outside the waistband. That was one I noticed I did not have out there, and I like that holster good, because I like the Pancake holster. If I'm going to wear an outside the waistband holster, some of them can be a little longish. Of course, if you got a long gun, doesn't really matter much, does it? Unless it extends way beyond the gun for some reason. And there was 2 or 3 or 4 we thought of later that just had not put my eyeballs on. And then one got raked off the table there, and we were setting up. We found after the video, which I'm glad we didn't leave out in the rain. It was my dad's old holster for his .22 double-action revolver. You may have seen that video. It was a Revelation made by High Standard. It was the very first pistol I ever shot. And first pistol my dad ever owned, and You know, I've had that for a long time with the original holster he bought for it, and had it out there. I was just going to mention that, show that again. I think I go through that maybe in the video with that gun, but that one got raked off into the gravel, and there were a couple more. And I didn't take my main cowboy rig out there. Oh, that's right. I didn't even take out my. I have two holsters for 7.5-inch Colts. I forgot about that. San Pedro saddlery. And then I have two holsters, San Pedro saddlery for 5.5-inch Colts, or 4 3/4-inch Colts, whatever you want to put in them, of course, that I use. And those two sets or pairs I used pretty extensively in cowboy action shooting. And, of course, the gun belt. I didn't take any of that out there. Didn't take my 45. I should have taken all that, I guess. And my 45-70 cartridge belt, I bought at a gun show up in Louisville. Gun day, and of course I've got a couple of bandoleros I didn't take out, but we could have done it up even a little bit bigger. We were just trying to grab things, and was concerned about giving you information, about the main holsters that I use, because I've been so negligent in doing that. But hope you got a look at that. If you haven't, check it out. There might be something there that is useful to you. And if you have questions, about any of those, I'm sure you'll ask them or leave a comment about them. Not that I answer a lot of comments necessarily, but ask me, or just whatever about a specific holster there, what I think of it. Those Don Humes are hard to beat for a reasonably priced holster. They're pretty nice, and both inside the waistband and out. And I love those O'Rourke holsters. They're just a great all-around holster. And of course the other ones I mentioned there that are really comfortable for inside the waistband. The PS holsters system there, the crossbreed, those Galco holsters, that Royal Guard is a really nice holster. So there's a lot of thought you have to put into picking out the right holster. That's why all of us that have been shooting a long time have so many holsters. We're always looking for that perfect holster, that most comfortable holster. And I'll tell you, if you ride in a car a lot using your carry permit, it's even more important. Even more important. The size of the gun and the type holster. It's critical, and I'll get into that as we move on through this concealed carry playlist I'll be working on this spring and summer. But just as a hint, that's one reason I really like the baby Glocks. And it also makes that crossbreed design shine, as well as the Comptac Minotaur. I think even Galco makes something like that. I haven't seen it, but there's something about that leather, that piece of leather, that really helps out. So anyway, hope you saw the holster video. Quite an event there at the shooting table, getting all those out there and prowling around through those. So holsters is finding the right holster is a bit of a challenge, and it's just something it's kind of a perpetual hunt. You never are really totally satisfied, and you'll end up with a lot of them. There's no doubt about it. Really, all the shooters in every state or region ought to get together like once a year somewhere. You wouldn't even need to worry about FFLs and that sort of thing. Just rent a hall of some sort and do a holster trade show or something. Everybody just go around and trade and sell holsters that they bought but don't like or don't fit anymore, or whatever. We'd all save a lot of money, wouldn't we? Have a flea market, a holster flea market. That's what we need. Somebody could set that up. The first annual holster flea market. I had gun safety on my list this week to talk about briefly. It occurred to me, somewhat from personal experience, some witnessing here and there. But if you go to shooting ranges, public shooting ranges, I know you see this probably all the time, a little scary, and that is just people not being very smart, very disciplined with their muzzle direction. People who have not had any training in firearm safety or have not competed in shooting matches. Sometimes they've just grown up, shot with their uncle, or maybe even their dad or parents, and just hang out on the farm shooting, and have not been in any formal competition or spent any time on a public range or anything. they really have not been hit in some cases with gun safety rules, and it's not as much on their mind. And it's just something I wanted to mention. If you fall into that category, you've never really been to a public range. Maybe you grew up on a farm, and you might have some habits you've developed that you just want to rethink. And I know you've not blown your toe off. You're still alive. You've not shot your leg or anything. You haven't shot anybody, but nobody has until it happens. Nobody's killed in a car wreck until it happens. Nobody is guilty of distracted driving and running over somebody until it happens. The day before, someone does something like that and gets themselves killed or hurt, they can say the same thing. I've never had any problem. I don't know. Getting philosophical, right? But anyway, some things that really bother people who are safety conscious at all is seeing someone on a shooting range anywhere shooting a pistol and then just dangling that thing. It's called dangling. I've covered that in the video, but you're just kind of pointing that thing at the ground, at your feet, behind you almost, and just being reckless with the muzzle. And you can tell right away, you can spot somebody a mile away that has no muzzle discipline. I mean, you really can, and you know what I'm talking about. Like I said in my safety videos, there's a laser beam coming out of that muzzle. I mean, that's just got to be on your mind. When that gun's in your hand, there's a laser beam coming out of that muzzle that will cut flesh, no matter how far away it is. It's that simple. And it's got to be pointed down range, at the targets, at the berm, at the bank. It always is pointed in that direction, no matter what you're doing. Maybe straight up for a second or something. You got other people walking around, whatever. But that gun has got to always be pointed down range. It's just that simple. And the thing that shooting a competition does, and spending some time on a public range does, is it ingrains that in you, because there are people there who will send you home with even one violation. So it just becomes part of you. And particularly if you're in a shooting match, an IPSC match, IDPA, because you're moving around with a loaded gun. So having that muzzle pointing in the right direction is, of course, vitally important. If you break the 180, as we call it, that thing is not pointed in front of you or out there. Think of that, the 180-degree line, pointed in front of you. You go home. It's an incredible penalty. It's a DQ. You're disqualified from the match. So, just something to think about. If you don't have that formal experience, I mean, you have a little bit of a reason, why it's not as much on your mind. So it's up to you as an individual to work on that and think about that. That muzzle just never being pointed in the wrong direction. Okay, actions open, finger off the trigger. Boy, there's nothing worse than being around somebody shooting that is like that. That's reckless. Nothing scarier. And you may find that for some reason, certain individuals are not inviting you to go shooting with them. You don't understand why. You thought you had a great time at the match or at the shooting range when you were there with them, and they didn't invite you back. Maybe it's that's the issue. Sorry, I'm trying to kill a wasp here that's flying. One of my other skills you may not be aware of is that I'm a master at swatting. Well, I say that. A wasp. Got him. All right. Did you hear that? It's swatting wasps out of the air with a ruler of some sort. Okay. Yardstick, anything like that. Works beautifully. Okay. They come in through the window here sometimes in the reloading room. But my first teaching gig back in the early 70s, I was up in the upstairs. This was an old dorm in a private school, a really neat place, but there was no air conditioning or anything. And in the spring, a wasp would come in through the windows, and they'd be flying around my head while I was trying to torment kids. And I had a slat from an old desk of some sort. And I'd just swat them out of the air. And we kept a tally on the board. It'd be like 37 of them, I'd kill before May and all that kind. Anyway, just a skill that I have that I'm very proud of, more so than whatever shooting skill I have. That's the neat thing about the radio show. I can just wander, get off topic, which is not hard to do when you have a wasp buzzing around your head. So anyway, safety issues, nothing more important than that. And as I was saying, if you don't have that experience on a range or in a shooting match, you just may not have that consciousness about it, and it's kind of up to you, incumbent upon you to work on that as an individual, because you have the luxury perhaps of shooting other places and not having to go to a range. So it just doesn't come up very often. You might have some really bad practices you developed and are just not aware of it. And if you go to a range or think you want to compete and go into a shooting match, well, you will find out in a hurry and you will be embarrassed big time. So just a little word of warning there. I've got a little bit of a story I thought you might like to hear. I don't know. Back in about 1974, I was not out of college long. I was involved in my first teaching position, my first incarnation as a teacher. I taught for 6 years and then took 11 years off and was in some different areas of business, traveled and did some things, and then came back to teaching. But this was in 74. Lived in an apartment about a year or two there after I was out of school. And of course I was into shooting and had, at that point, I probably had about 3 or 4 or 5 guns, I don't know. But I had my big 44 Smith & Wesson Model 29, 8 3/8 inch. It didn't have, well, I had a place to shoot. Well, let's see. Did I know? I'm not sure I knew about the gun club I joined later. I guess I did. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, up from my apartment complex, up this little county road, we're sort of on the edge of a small town, and you come out of the apartment and you could run up this county road, and about a mile, maybe less up the road, there was a phosphate mine. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they would just kind of rake off the soil. It looked like a huge construction site with big piles of dirt and deep holes, all kinds of things where they were digging the phosphate out. And it was just hundreds of acres, I guess. And people would shoot there some. I don't know how legal or okay it was. No one ever said anything. But I decided I'd just walk up there and take some shots one day. I don't know if it was whether it was a summer. Actually, I remember being cold. Actually, it was not summer because I was wearing a jacket, my old leather jacket from college, actually. And so it must have been in the winter, maybe during Christmas vacation or something. But I was going to, for some reason, I didn't have access to the car, and I wanted to go up there and shoot the 29. So I thought, okay, now how do I do this? I don't want to put it in a case. And I thought, oh, you know what? I had the shoulder holster, the one you saw in the video, the big, dirty, hairy type holster, shoulder holster. And I put that thing on with the Model 29, had her loaded. I mean, I was Clint Eastwood, I guess I thought I was. And I put that leather, it was leather sleeves, one of those leather types, I guess old style type of leather jackets. I put it on, buttoned it up, and thought, pockets full of bullets and some earplugs. And I just set out walking up that county road. I thought, I'll just walk up there, take 50 or 60 shots just for kicks. That'd be fun. Well, here I am, walking up the road, county road, with loaded 44 Magnum, Model 29, and actually illegally, don't tell anybody. Back then there were no carry permits. That was long before I was involved with the police department or anything. And there I am. But I was just going to the range to shoot. Probably been okay if it hadn't been loaded, but I don't know what the laws were on that. But I know walking up the road, probably with that, even though concealed, was probably not totally legal. I was young and stupider than I am now. And that wasn't up to anything, because I just didn't worry about it. So here I go walking up the county road, that gun. I get about halfway up there, past this little farmhouse. Out comes the yiping little dog, yipingest little dog you've ever seen. You know how some of them can be. I don't know, Chihuahua or something. Some little animated dust mop came running out after me like I was Charles Manson or something. I'm minding my own business out on the road, and here he comes. Well, I've got a 44 Magnum, and I know how to use it, not nearly as well as I do now, but I hadn't had it long. So, now I know what you'd like to hear. You'd like to hear that I just blew that little thing away, wouldn't you? Well, ironically, that dog kept coming and kept coming, and I kind of sped up my walk and even started to jog a little bit, which of course, you know, made me more of a target. You know how dogs are. And I just want to get away from him, because here I am, and you know, with a loaded firearm. So the dog comes out and bites me on the ankle. The dog bites me, and they'd let him out of the house, I think, so I wasn't worried about rabies or anything like that. It wasn't like some wild stray dog. And so here I am with a loaded gun, and I'm kind of up the road by now. I kick him away, and I know this is not a heroic story, and I just go on about my business. And I go up to the phosphate mine, and I shoot, and pull down my sock and check my ankle, and the little rascal got his teeth in there a little bit. Yeah, I guess I should have, you know, bulletproof when you're young and stupid. I should have probably had it checked out and talked to those people, and, you know, I would have done something, but I didn't. I don't worry about little things, I guess, like that. Broken arm, it'll heal, put some duct tape on it, you know. So I go up and shoot, and, you know, come on back. He didn't attack me on the way back, but, so I don't have a great story to tell on the way back, you know, how I blew him away on the return trip or anything. But one reason I tell that story is it's something that we all have to bear in mind. You know, when you pack a loaded firearm, and now, of course, most of us can do that legally. Well, if you're in the States and, you know, you have a permit, we can do that legally. But that's kind of the attitude you have to have, almost. You cannot pull out your firearm just on a whim. You can never get into a macho mood. You can never get into a tough guy mode, and use that firearm. It is really strictly to save your life, and that, or life of a loved one. If that dog really represented no, I guess, death threat to me. I didn't expect him to bite me either, of course. But now, if a big dog had latched onto my leg, you know, obviously he'd have been shot off my leg, you know, and then I'd deal with the legal consequences later. But he nipped me, and I was proud of myself for maintaining my cool, and that's what you have to do. So I guess I'm kind of using myself as a lesson here. You've got to keep your cool no matter what. Masa Ayub, if you're familiar with him, one of the most famous gun writers and trainers in the country, he writes about that. And I had read, I think, In the Gravest Extreme before that. If you haven't read that book, it's a good one to pick up. I'm sure it's still in print somewhere. It's In the Gravest Extreme, and he talks about keeping his cool under situations where he was in law enforcement his whole life, basically, I think. And, you know, even situations where he could have drawn his gun, he refrained from it. I remember a story he tells about being in New York, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I read that in the early 70s, but he was back streets or somewhere in New York City. I'm pretty sure it was New York City. And he was legally armed, and some guys approached him, held him up, you know, with a knife, I think, I don't remember what it was, and wanted money, and he talked about keeping a wad of bills, or at least a small wad, in his shirt pocket, so he could just easily and quickly grab them a couple of 20s and throw at him. Here, it's all I got. Go away. You know, rather than have a confrontation, you know. And while a lot of people would think, what a wimp, you know, those punks should be blown away, you know, you just put yourself into court for the next 5-10 years over something that can be easily avoided. Just something to keep in mind when you, you know, if you have a carry permit, or if you just have a firearm, you don't have a carry permit, you cannot use that thing like a pepper spray or something. It's got to be in that holster and away, and not even brandished, you know, unless it's under extreme circumstances, or you're buying yourself a whole world of trouble. So, anyway, that was kind of an interesting story. I always think about it. There I was walking with a .44 Magnum, and little did that doggy know how lucky he was, or its owner, I guess. But that's kind of what you have to do. You have to keep that thing holstered. You have to just be more polite than you would normally be. You know, was it Cooper that said an armed society is a polite society? Or was that White Earp? Maybe it was Hickok, I don't know. But anyway, it is so true, and I thought maybe you'd enjoy that story, and you'd enjoy seeing what a wimp I used to be, right? You know, I think it's time for gun action of the week. Yes. Last week, some of you got it right. Maybe my clue helped, but you guessed it. It was that good old sawed-off Brown Bess musket. Yes, the smoothbore flintlock. So if you've ever messed with cap locks, flintlocks, guess that was, I don't know if it was unmistakable, but probably easier to kind of figure out there for you. So it was a little bit different, and of course when that hammer fell, that had to be a unique sound. Of course, I'm hearing it and looking at it right here in front of my face, so, you know, it's sometimes I forget how difficult it might be. I just know it is difficult when I do listen to these. I can't get them. Hopefully you guys can. So, that was the old Brown Bess, the flintlock. You've seen it in action a little bit. You've seen me mess with it. I am going to get that back out here this spring, and I know part of my problem with that gun I really need to use, like I did the very first time I got it. When I bought it, I had some really fine, some 4F powder, and I would tamp it down into the charge hole and everything, and that really did reduce the delay on the powder and everything. So I need to get back into shooting that a little bit and do it right, and probably shoot a little bit better. Okay, anyway, this week's gun action is, again, something maybe a little different. So listen up, boys and girls. I pulled a hammer there. That's the only one I'm going to do. Action open. Action closed. Okay, I'll cock it. Alright, so y'all guess what that is? The only clue I'm going to give you is it is a firearm. Okay? Somebody asked me just in the last day or two to talk about old gunsmithing and different things that I might do on firearms, or that I don't remember everything he did say actually. Maybe it's things that you all could tackle, maybe things you shouldn't tackle, things I do to my firearms, things I don't do, that kind of thing. Well, I could talk about that for a long time, I guess, and maybe I'll just call this part one of that and talk about it again at some other point with other firearms. But the basic rule of thumb, I think, on that is just like with a computer. I've been in computers since like '81. I'm not a computer nerd, but I was. That doesn't mean a lot to some of you younger people. You don't know what was going on. You don't know. But I was there with an Apple II when you hardly ever saw an Apple II unless it was in a business. I was one of the first ones to have one, and anybody I knew or was ever around. But I was never a nerd about it. I used it to work at the company I was with and manage territories and different things. Learned just enough to be useful, really useful, and I was interested in learning even how to program a little bit. And of course, soon after that, you really didn't need to be able to program other than build a spreadsheet, unless you just wanted to. But what I was getting at there with a firearm and with computers, most of you are familiar with computers now, you have to know your limitations. Sometimes I know we're all tempted to go into computer system and maybe adjust something, the registry or whatever, and you go in and look around and you say, let's see, I wonder what that would do. Would that tweak it right? And you end up back out. Well, I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to mess it up worse than it is. And so you back yourself out the way you went in, try to remember where you were, or what you clicked, or what you unclicked, what you unchecked. Working on guns is a little bit like that. Just you want to know your limitations, but do not be afraid with some things to take them apart a little bit and tinker with them. Just do it carefully. There's a lot of good information on the web, on YouTube, about how to take something apart And you can watch some of these videos, some of the characters that can take apart a Glock, and you shouldn't feel too inept, because there are a couple little tricky points at times, but you're probably not going to hurt anything with it unless you start pounding on it with a hammer. And that's one thing that I do. I take Glocks apart all the way, and it's really not that difficult. I've done some of that on video, and there's other people who've done it on video and do really good jobs at it. I think, I've got one favorited, I guess, by the KGB 65. If you want to see how to take a Glock apart, he has some interesting stuff there in disassembly of a Glock, for example. You mess with it, just take it down a little bit more than you have in the past, and just kind of gradually work into it. You should be able to take a slide down. Look up how to do that. It's just not that hard at all. Getting that back plate off, and man, you got it apart. There's just not much to it. And then you should be doing that anyway. And I've got a video on that, taking the slide apart. Should do that. I don't know. Depends on how much you carry it and shoot the thing, but and rely on it for maybe a carry gun or self-defense, because you could get brass shavings or something in that firing pin, that striker channel, and it mess you up, or oil in there attracting dirt and stuff. So every now and then you might want to do that. So I would recommend, with some guns like that, a Glock, learn to take down that slide, take down the frame. It's not that hard. 1911s, same thing. I think they're a little trickier on the frame, but the slide's essentially the same. Not a lot of difference there. So I do that. Of course, let's see, my Colt single actions, I take them down to the last screw, and I do action jobs, slick them up. Let me put it that way. I know my limitations. I don't mess with the trigger much at all. Might polish a little bit on that hammer, on those notches. I just don't mess with it, though. I'll take it to somebody to work on the trigger if I think it's too light or it's too heavy. But now everything else in there, I bought, what's it called? Here it is right in front of me. In fact, from Brownells, a stoning kit. It's for stoning the slot and everything, in like the hand slot and all that in a single action. You can get stones that are actually cut and made for doing that, and you can smooth up things with a nice set of stones. On a single action Colt. I've taken 2 or 3 or more than that, I guess, third generations, newer Colt single actions, particularly ones made in the 90s, were a little rougher, and you can get a set of stones, good gunsmithing stones, like from Brownells or somewhere, and you'd be surprised what you can do. And you're not really affecting the trigger. You're not messing with the trigger, the safety of that or anything. You're just slicking up the action in there, the grooves in just various places. And that kind of thing I'll do with those. I'm not really a gunsmith. I can take apart a Marlin pretty well. The Uberti 1873, I've had that thing totally apart. I think I've done a lot of those without looking it up. You just sort of look at it and kind of tell what you're doing, get an idea what comes off next, what needs to come off, and make sure you don't booger up the screws. You got good screwdrivers, and you don't lose a screw. You just take your time with it and study it. Notice how it comes off. It's going to probably go back the same way, probably in the same order, right? And same with the Garand and M14, M1A, and those guns. It's just a matter of kind of looking at it, figuring it out, getting a manual. I've got manuals on most of them, odds and ends, and I'll look at that. And I have so many different firearms, I do have to go back. Like if I went out, grabbed the M1A today to take it apart, beyond just kind of field stripping it, I might need to consult my manual or something. I just haven't looked at, and I've got so many different types of fire. And the AKs, those guns are simple to take apart. And lube them and dry it off, and put them back together. It's not a big problem, really. Just be careful, know what you're getting into, and if you feel uncomfortable at a certain point, try to research it and see what you need to do next, or if you should do it. And then there are some things you just don't want to mess with. Triggers especially. You do not want to mess up a trigger. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't want to render a firearm unsafe, of course, or have the hammer drop when you didn't mean for it to drop or anything like that. But don't be too much of a wimp. I was a little reluctant too long. It really wasn't until the last 10, 15 years I started becoming a gunsmith. got me a sledgehammer and a Dremel tool. That's all you need, isn't it? Just kidding. I kid on my gunsmithing friends, or gunsmith friends. That's what a gunsmith is, a man with a sledge and a Dremel tool, but that's really not the case, of course. But I was too reluctant. If I could go do it over again, I would have become a little bit more of a tinkerer, back in the 70s when I first started getting into firearms. It's more interesting, makes the firearms more interesting to you to know how they tick and, how to fix some things, replace parts and all that. That's the neat thing about a Glock. It's another thing about a Glock that I like. In fact, I have most parts. I can just take it apart and replace anything. Of course, ironically, you rarely ever have to do that. I did buy, the Glock 27. I may have told this story that I bought used. The one I did it's the one I shot the 230-yard video with. It has night sights on it, and it's the only difference on that. It gets all stock other than that. But I picked that up in a gun shop, used, and got home and it malfunctioned on me. I said, whoa, what's this? A Glock malfunctioning? What is going on? I got to looking at the extractor, and it didn't seem to fit exactly right. Turns out that it was the wrong extractor in the gun. So somewhere along its life, someone had taken it apart and mixed up extractors or something. They put the wrong extractor back in it. And it would work like 8 out of 10 shots or something, but it would just malfunction. It was weird. And that was all it was. I came into the shed, got in my Glock parts kit, pulled out an extractor, put it in there, and of course it's been fine ever since. So just being able to do that basic stuff is nice. It's rewarding. And again, with a Glock, you can just order from like Lone Wolf or Glockmeister, Top Glock. There's a lot of different companies. I don't know, maybe even Glock themselves sell that. I don't think they do. But you can order almost any part, for the gun. Spare parts and literally take it apart and replace anything. So Glock's a good one to learn on because they're not that complex, and the parts are all totally interchangeable, of course. But anyway, don't be afraid to tinker a little bit. Just know your limitations. Thought I'd talk just a little bit about gun history this week too. It occurred to me that it might be of some interest to some of you, and then of course those who are closer to my age. You might recall how things were back in the old days, not the really old days, not talking historical days, just talking 70s more or less. When I first got into firearms, late 60s, on my own, more or less, and in the early 70s, you may not be aware, and I was just thinking about this the other day, how different things are now, and all the choices in firearms, and all the questions, and the conversations that you see on the forums and on YouTube about different guns and which polymer gun is the best and which size gun. And I mean, there's so many choices and so many manufacturers, and there's just no end to it. I can remember the good old simple days and going into a gun shop and having those same conversations. We didn't have the internet back then, but I can recall sitting in gun shops and people arguing about things like Smith & Wesson versus Colt. That was really the big conversation in the early 70s, maybe mid to late 70s too. But that was one of the major choices. You were going to buy a handgun, or if you own handguns, people would argue about which was better, Smith or Colt. I mean, you think about it. I mean, the Smith & Wesson revolver was just so popular, and Colt revolvers were popular. There were a whole array of Colt revolvers, and then you had the Colt, of course, the 1911 Smith & Wesson. You had an automatic or two there, the Model 39, I think it is. It was a 9mm, or no, that was a 38 or something. I don't know. But you had the model, the 39. I never did have one of those. And you had the 59, which was a high cap 9mm. But you didn't have all of these other models. And so Colt and Smith & Wesson were the two big boys, the two big players in the market. And I don't remember Taurus being around, and these other companies, really, Springfield, I don't know, some of the companies might have been just starting up during that time period. Now Ruger was around, but they were more known for their just their single actions. You know, the old Blackhawks and Super Blackhawks, and they were, of course, popular. But not many people were. You didn't see Colt single actions that much. At least I don't recall. That wasn't a common topic of conversations at all. I'm sure there were people who collected them and knew about them, but I never did see them in gun shops, to tell you the truth. Not that I recall. Maybe occasionally. But it was Colt or Smith & Wesson. And within the Smith line, people would argue about a K-frame or an N-frame. You know, 38, 357 versus 44 or 45. You know, I mean, those were the big arguments, the big choices. Or single action versus double action, which was more accurate, which would be the better one to own, all that. But you have to remember, this is long before the days of the widespread carry laws and the, you know, concealed carry laws. So the little guns were the evil guns at that time. At that time, the far left was trying to make anything that was, you know, 2-inch barrel into something that was just horrible. That was the evil gun of the day, not the AKs and every other thing, high capacity mags. There was never any talk about that. That Smith & Wesson 59, Model 59, I think held, I don't know, 15 rounds. The Browning high power had been around forever. It holds what, 13 in the magazine. No one ever talked about that in any kind of negative way. It was those little guns, those little Saturday night specials, so evil, you know. So, but just a different time. It'd be interesting to go back, even for me, and, you know, spend a month in 1972 or 73 and visit gun shops and just see what's on the shelf and what people are talking about and arguing about. I mean, I was there. I know what they were arguing about and debating and trying to decide between and amongst. It was just a very interesting and different time. Didn't have all these models and all these choices from all over the world and all these polymer wonders, you know. Yeah, there were some guns that I didn't even know what they were, probably, I don't know, like Walthers or somebody, just some various guns. But by and large, it was Smith & Wesson revolvers ruled. Just comes down to that. And Colt revolvers ruled, you know. And then single action Rugers ruled. You know, N-frame and K-frame Smiths ruled. There was no L-frame. There were no X-frames, none of these crazy things. And the big debate, of course, was 45 versus 9mm, if you're talking about an automatic gun, semi-automatic. So, interesting times, long gone. Things have changed dramatically since then. Now we have so many choices within one little genre area of firearms that people have a hard time deciding, you know, without getting their hands on it and shooting it. Even then, it's not easy. I shoot a lot of these guns, and it's a tough choice for me. So, just a totally different world. So, anyway, I'll wrap this thing up. Hope you enjoyed some of that jabbering, and hope you had a good week. We've had a good week. Posted a video or two. We'll post one or two next week. As I've said, we will try to get a video a week at least, and sometimes it's more than that, just depending on our schedule. So we've enjoyed what we've been doing these past week or so, and hope you are shooting, getting a chance to shoot, and you are representing us firearms owners in the very best light you can, so we can help offset that really small percentage of people who don't, wherever they might be encountered. And just have a good week, and I hope you get a chance to shoot. So take care. Life is really good. You've been listening to the Hickok 45 radio show. See you on the range.